The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the famous Tom Fennell, philanthropist. And, you know, you're a greater philanthropist, I think, than David or Charles Koch. They donate to the opera, but they also put some other things out there that I don't appreciate.
They donate to a lot of bad things, I'm afraid.
I think so. I get up and go to the news every day and put together a set of 10 or 15 items that I put into a blog post at my blog, geoharvey.com, Geoharvey. Each of these is a synopsis of a news article that I find, which would be 50 or 55 words, plus a link to the original article. And I put those up every day, another package of them for the blog. And you know, I've done this for over 2,000 days in a row.
Get a little tiring?
Well, you know, I get donations on the blog. So far, I've had enough money that I think a day's work is worth about 35 cents. Literally. Anyway, these things are available to anybody who wants to go on the blog and look at them. But every week, Tom and I get together and talk about the ones that are the most interesting of the week. And so we have usually 20, 21, 22 of these things.
About 3 a day.
About 3 a day. Some days it's 2, some days it's 4, you know, not usually. Usually it's just 3 a day. We're pretty regular about everything that goes around here. But we're starting off today. Today, as we record this, is the 7th of December, but we start the week's news a week earlier. So we're starting on the 30th of November, and if you here's something that you want to take a look at, you can go to geoharvey.com, click on the date. We'll try to keep you apprised of what the dates are.
Some of these are very well written and in depth. You know,
yes, absolutely.
I'll try to call your attention to ones that I found particularly
interesting. Yeah, but we should start off, and we start with a picture and an item from an organization called Inside Climate News.
5,500 U.S. schools use solar power, and that's growing as costs fall.
Yeah. Nearly 5,500 K through 12 U.S. schools, about 5% of all schools, are now powered by the sun, at least to some extent. And their solar capacity has almost doubled in the last 3 years, according to a study by the Solar Energy Industries Association, the Solar Foundation, and Generation 180. Their total generating capacity is 910 megawatts, enough to power 190,000 homes.
Which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. They're in the infancy here.
Oh yeah, well, it's only 5% of what's out there, but 910 megawatts is about 150% of the capacity that Vermont Yankee had.
Yeah, that's
now,
so
of course,
by itself
it's significant. Solar power is not equal to nuclear power when it comes to the amount of electricity delivered by a megawatt of capacity. And in fact, it's only about, I think, 15 or 20%, depending upon where they're sited. Although there was a really interesting item in the news, I think it was today, in which they were talking about a solar installation, big solar installation in northern Scotland. And the attraction of this place is that it's so far north that the sun shines all the time in the summer almost.
Yeah, so land of the midnight sun.
There you go. They're not up to the Arctic Circle there, but they
have very long days. Yeah.
Yeah, they have. I used to live in the south of England, which of course is the entirely opposite end of the British Isles, and I was, you know, like June comes and the sun goes down at 9:30 at night.
Well, I was in Norway in June, and it didn't get dark.
Yeah.
I mean, the sun went down.
But it never got dark. Yeah. Anyway, there is that, and we I don't know.
There's an interesting backstory here.
Yes.
The kids are learning about solar.
Yes.
And some are getting jobs out of it.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely. And solar installers, for example, it's not an insignificant job. It's not like, well,
And of course, the biggest reason behind this is that solar energy has become very competitive.
it's become very competitive. Should we move on?
Yeah, I think we can.
Our next item is from Clean Technica.
Self-driving taxis. Self-driving taxis. What a
How about
concept.
that? Yeah.
Could cut demand for sedans 50% by 2030.
Sales demand for sedans in the United States could fall by more than half by 2030 due to the influence of self-driving taxis on the market, going on findings from a new study from the consulting firm KPMG. The study predicts a, quote, precipitous decline, end quote, in the U.S. from the current 5.4 million sedan sales each year to 2.1 million by 2030. 5.4 to 2.1. That is a big drop.
Well, what they're predicting here is that the families are not going to need to own a sedan.
Yeah.
They'll probably have one car that they'll all use instead of, a sedan for the family,
Yeah.
and each kid has a car.
Well, you know, Tony Seba talked about this.
Who did?
Tony Seba. We've talked about him on the show.
Uh-huh.
And he said basically, if you look at New York City, people are going to be able to, it will be so easy to get a taxi that is a self-driving car in New York City that it will no longer
not
make
gonna need a
sense to
car.
own a car.
Well, it's a liability in New York.
Oh,
I mean, parking a car in New York is more expensive than in your apartment.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I know. So, should we move on?
Well, the quick takeaway here is families will dump smaller sedans and keep larger vehicles for longer trips.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Our next item is from Grist.
Got another picture here.
We have a picture.
This is an interesting picture, too.
It's also an interesting article.
Life after coal. It's a long and interesting view of mining in the Ruhr Valley.
Yeah, at one time 500,000 miners worked in Germany's Ruhr Valley. That's about 10 times as many miners as there are in the entire United States today.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
10 times.
10 times.
Wow. I knew they had a lot of coal.
500,000 miners worked in Germany's Ruhr Valley, producing as much as 124 million tons of coal every year. Next year, that era will come to an end when the last mine closes. Wind turbines have sprung up among old shaft towers and coking plants as Germany strives to hit its renewable energy goals. That picture, by the way,
bring the picture back.
I don't know what those things are called, but that's infrastructure.
Well, they're basically elevators.
Yeah.
They take you down to the mine.
Do they elevate both people and coal?
No, the coal comes out on conveyors.
Ah, okay.
But the people go down there, and then to get to where they're cutting the coal from the depth that they're at, they got to take a train.
You see one of those things in the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I've been down a coal mine, and reading this article brought back memories. It's just exactly what it's like.
If you want to go down a coal mine, my recommendation is go to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. They have a coal mine you can go into.
It's kind of funny when I was going down there to examine a machine that was ripping up the cable that my company made.
Yeah.
So I went down there to try to figure out what was wrong.
Yeah.
And they gave me 2 hammers. I was, I'm not going down there to hammer anything. When I got down there, I found out why they gave me 2 hammers. To walk.
Oh my gosh.
Use them sort of like crutches because it's only 4 feet down there.
Oh my gosh.
So you're all bent over, Strange.
Well, the mine in the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago has an area that's taller than that. You can actually stand up in it.
Well, it's a museum.
It's a museum. It's not a real coal mine, although it kind of looks like one. Okay, we are up to December 1st, which is a Friday, and we have an item from The Guardian, which is kind of interesting.
German court to hear a Peruvian farmer's climate case against the Rhine-Westphalia Electric Company.
A German court has ruled that it will hear a Peruvian farmer's case against energy giant RWE over climate change damage in the Andes. The decision is labeled by campaigners as a historic breakthrough. Farmer Saul Luciano Uya, I don't know,
I can't tell you. It depends on the accent. Could be Julia.
Julia, really?
Not Julia, Julia.
Julia.
The Y sound.
Oh, yes, of course.
Sometimes a J.
His case against RWE was described as well-founded by the court in the northwestern city of Ham.
Well, the guy's argument here makes sense. He's arguing that RWE, as one of the world's top emitters of climate-altering carbon dioxide, must share in the cost of protecting his hometown from a swollen glacier lake at the risk of overflowing from the melting snow and ice.
Well, how about that?
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
By the way, in this article, there's a picture there of a group of tourists walking up to the
glacier, yeah.
And there's a sign there. And it shows a picture of the glacier like 10 years ago. It's a different world.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've seen that over and over again.
Just most of the glacier is gone.
Our glaciers are all disappearing. And you know, I remember when I think I was in 7th grade.
Were you in 7th grade?
Yeah, I was actually.
I was too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't even meet each other. There was a thing that we got in some little science thing that was distributed in the schools, and it said that the glaciers in Glacier National Park were all in retreat.
Yes, yeah.
And the teacher said, well, you know, so one of the students said, I want to see that place and they'll all be gone. The teacher said, don't worry about it. This is a really slow retreat. It'll take thousands of years for them to disappear.
Well, I've been at Glacier Park. They were right.
Yeah,
they're going to have to change the name in about another 10 years.
Yeah, it's disappearing. And so are glaciers all over the world. But don't worry about it, Tom, because it's all a hoax.
Yeah.
Perpetrated by the Chinese. Okay, so
so let's move to Australia, huh?
Move to Australia, and
we
this
got a picture here too, don't
yeah,
we?
this is a picture that looks like it might have been painted by Salvador Dali.
Tesla's South Australia battery starts delivering power a day early. More than a day early, but
I think it was. Hornsdale Power Reserve, Tesla's 100 megawatt, 129 megawatt hour power pack system, started delivering power to the grid a day early. It is connected to the Hornsdale Wind Farm, South Australia's biggest renewable generator. The power pack project cost roughly around $50 million and can power 30,000 homes for 1 hour. Now, I want to say, I don't understand this article or any of the other articles that are about this. For a reason.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. $50 million for 129 megawatt hours. Now, we've been talking about batteries, the price falling below $250 per kilowatt hour, $200 per kilowatt hour,
yep.
And we've seen it at $180 per kilowatt hour. And here is this thing that's coming in at about $40 per kilowatt hour. How did that happen? And I cannot find an actual price of the wind farm, of the solar batteries array. The only thing that I can find is the amount of money that Tesla would have lost if it had not got it done on time.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they're the same figure.
They should be, but not
I don't
necessarily.
know. If Elon Musk has done this, this is unbelievable.
Well, we've talked about this before, but I'm going to reiterate just
go
to
ahead.
bring people up to date. He made a bet earlier this year. He said his company would install 100 megawatt of battery power, 100 megawatt battery system in 100 days.
Yeah.
To help South Australia beat the blackout blues, or the project would be free.
Yeah.
And he won his bet.
Yeah.
He delivered on that promise 40 days before the deadline.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
well,
something's going on.
That was the other thing too. Is I kept finding this thing that said a day early, and I kept finding things that said 40 days.
Different deadlines.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay. Should we move
his
on?
His own self-described deadline and the deadline for the project, I think, are two different things.
Okay.
Let's move along. Zero tolerance plan eyed for plastic pollution.
Yeah, this is important.
It's interesting because as I left this morning, I was listening to Vermont Public Radio.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they were talking about.
Really
pollution.
interesting. BBC News had this: a plan for zero tolerance for plastic pollution of the oceans may be agreed on by nations at the UN Summit for the Environment. By the way, it was agreed on. So this story is
in the past.
In the past, yeah. Governments are being asked to move toward a legal treaty banning plastic waste from entering the sea. Experts say plastic ocean debris are an obvious subject for a global treaty because the plastics generate a large-scale threat, and they generate a large-scale threat.
Well, from the article, there was a picture of a beach.
Yes.
Lovely beach, just littered with plastic.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you see where it
I wanted
was?
to throw up. I mean.
Did you see where the beach was?
No.
That beach, I think, was on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It was like Midway or one of those, and that plastic had been coming from Japan and California, and what happens was the ocean goes around, and the plastic tends to move toward the centers of
the circulation.
And so there are huge areas that are just covered with plastic, and of course it's extremely destructive to wildlife.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all kinds of wildlife.
All
Birds,
kinds.
Fish, dolphins, everything.
Yep.
Bad news.
Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move
okay,
to
we
Saturday.
are up to Saturday, December 2nd.
We have a picture here.
We have a picture here.
This should be familiar to some local people.
Some local people, although the camera in that picture is tilted. That slope is not as steep as it looks here. And
that happens to be right across the border in Gore Mountain, which is not too far from Rutland.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is from Solar Industry. Do you have a title?
New York claims country's largest solar project dedicated to a ski resort.
The New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is called NYSERDA, and the Olympic Regional Development Authority and Borrego Solar announced the completion of the Gore Mountain Ski Resort's 5.3 megawatt solar array about 90 miles north of Albany. NYSERDA said the project is the largest solar system dedicated to a U.S. ski resort.
Well, it would seem to me to be a logical thing for ski resorts, because they use a lot of power.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, the solar installation doesn't give them all they need, but it's 85% there.
Yeah, and that makes a difference.
Well, they got to be saving a lot of money.
Yeah, well, if you look at that picture, you can see snow being blown, and that takes, I think, a lot more power than people realize.
Oh, sure. There's compressors and
there's all kinds
and
of
all sorts
gears
of stuff.
going on. And
snowmaking has turned into quite an art. I mean, who would have thunk? when you were a kid, would you ever think somebody's made a machine to create snow?
Well, I used to, when I lived in New Hampshire, I had a neighbor who was an expert at certain things involving snow and outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
And he actually went up to Mount Washington and to teach the personnel there how to drive on the road up Mount Washington in the snow.
Okay.
I mean, you'd think they already knew, but he wanted to give them the fine points.
Well, sounds like a good thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. So our next item is from the Rutland Herald. You ever hear of that?
Well, it's interesting because I couldn't get it from the Rutland Herald. They wanted money.
They wanted money.
Yeah. I got it from the Times Argus.
Good for you. When I find these articles and I click on the sites, I take the URL that I find there and I copy it into what's called an incognito window, which means that their computer will think it's a different computer than the one that found them originally.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I find those things and I just don't use the article. I will look for a different article on the same subject. And in this case, I had found the article and it worked, so. But it's like the Brattleboro.
I got the article. It came up. It just wouldn't let me read it.
the Brattleboro Reformer has articles that I don't use, even though anybody could click on them, because a week down the line, they will be in the archives and no longer accessible to non-subscribers. So anyway, sorry about that.
This article is called Climate Policy Innovation, and it's about something called the Essex Plan.
Yeah,
Do you
instead
want
of
to tell us what the Essex Plan is? It has nothing to do with Essex County or Essex anything.
Instead
It's
of
an acronym.
Yes, actually, you should probably tell us, because I had forgotten what the acronym was. Instead of reducing emissions in the past 5 years, Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions have actually increased. Far from being on track to meeting our goals, we're not even heading in the right direction. The release of an innovative new climate pricing policy brings hope of getting Vermont back on track. Now, what is Essex?
Basically, what they're doing is they're imposing a tax on fossil fuels,
Right.
gradually increasing, and that money that is raised from the tax is going back to the people.
Yes.
So it's kind of a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, except that what's happening is it means that your taxes are being restructured so that a tax is imposed on fossil fuels, but it's redistributed back to the people so that they can get relief from
Basically, yeah, very close to
what
that.
it means in the end is that people who don't use fossil fuels benefit, and people who do use fossil fuels a lot pay the tax.
Well, I think last week I mentioned something that somebody wrote about it. I mean, it's just, if your neighbor dumps his garbage over your fence, should you clean it up or should he?
Yeah, that's right.
That's basically
and the what they call the social cost of fossil fuels is about $1.80 a gallon for gasoline. So if you burn,
and the taxpayer's paying it.
Yeah, if you burn a gallon of gasoline, it means, for the most part, that's medical problems. It means that somebody is going to develop $1.80 worth of medical problems for 1 gallon of gasoline.
Okay, I can buy that.
So all of a sudden you start saying, well, why should the victim have to pay for this instead of the person who actually did the damage? Ultimately, I think it has to go back to the fossil fuels industry. And
well, it's only fair. It's just like I said, if your neighbor is dumping his garbage over your fence, he should pay to pick it up.
Yep.
Let's move along.
Our next item is from Forbes.
Ah, yes. Battery storage steals the spotlight at nuclear power's birthday party.
How about this?
This is kind of interesting.
Nuclear power had its birthday bash 75 years after the first man-made nuclear reaction, and that was in 1942, and it happened in Chicago.
University of Chicago.
Yeah, it happened in Chicago. They had this reaction that was going on, almost kind of like out in the open. It was in a squash court.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was. It was an abandoned squash court.
Uh-huh.
The CEO of Exelon, the nation's largest nuclear operator, named energy storage as the most promising technology of the future, and it was one that would ultimately render nuclear power unnecessary.
This is a good and interesting article.
If you're interested in the future of energy, nuclear power, battery storage, or anything like that, this is an article that's worth reading.
I'm trying to say, yeah, he does say something here that kind of woke me up. Energy storage hasn't arrived yet because lithium-ion, which is our best approach to battery, does not provide all the features the energy market needs. We need days of discharges, and we're getting minutes.
Well,
from the batteries.
Yeah.
But as I've mentioned here, and as you've mentioned, there's a lot of smart people working on this.
Well, I think I will differ with him. We don't need days. We need a mix.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about this, solar power, you know that the sun is, you're not going to get anything unless the sun is shining.
Duh.
Yeah. But when the sun is not shining, which means night or
cloudy days,
winter as opposed to summer, that's when the wind is blowing. So you mix solar power and wind power, and the need for a battery is reduced.
Okay.
You throw into that mix a few other things like biogas and things of that nature, and the need for the batteries is reduced.
And if you're in a good location, you can have pumped storage.
Yeah, and you throw into that mix long distance transmission lines, and the need for battery power is reduced. Now we're in an age now where transmission of electric power is so efficient that we could, in terms of cost effectiveness, we could be getting our energy, our electrical energy in New England from the Aleutians or even Tierra del Fuego if we just had the correct electric line coming in.
Technically, it's possible.
I was stunned. I did the research on what the amount of loss in electric lines, and it was like 9.5% per 1,000 miles in 1985. In 1995, it was about 6% per 1,000 miles, and in more recently, it's dropped down to below 3% per 1,000 miles.
They're definitely making progress.
They're making huge progress. A lot of that is because of superconductors.
Yeah.
And at 6% or 5.5 or whatever it was, what they said was the cost of transmission was low enough that you could cost effectively transmit high voltage DC power for 4,000 miles.
That covers the country.
That covers the country. Yeah. Since that time, the loss has been reduced by 50%. We could cost effectively, if we had the transmission lines and they were in place, we could cost effectively be powered from a solar array in Australia. Really.
That's stretching it a bit, but the Aleutians isn't.
Yeah. Okay, we are up to Sunday, December 3rd, and we have a new picture. This article, by the way, it comes from Clean Technica, and I think it was the most visited article at Clean Technica all week.
Was it really?
Yeah. This article was read at Clean Technica by over 12,000 people.
There's a little bit of irony in this article.
A little bit. That's why it was there.
China launches world's first all-electric cargo ship, which will be used to haul coal.
What can you say? There is a picture of the ship. China has launched the first all-electric cargo ship, according to China Daily. And actually, that picture, if you'll notice, has Chinese characters all over it.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't it? It's amazing that people can read those things, isn't it?
Baffles me.
It baffles me. According to China Daily, the 230-foot-long vessel is equipped with a 2,400 kilowatt-hour lithium battery. It stores enough electric energy to transport 2,200 tons of cargo a distance of 50 miles on a single charge at a speed of about 8 miles an hour. It will be used to transport coal on the Pearl River.
They got this all figured out.
They have it.
It takes 2 hours to unload the ship.
Yes.
It takes 2 hours to recharge the battery.
There you go. Yeah. But, I mean, this is... what? Really? You're using it. I used to work in a law office in Washington, D.C. for about a year, and I was talking to one of the patent attorneys there, and I said, I'm gonna invent this thing, and when I get rich, I'm going to make an investment that's going to express my interest in 3 technologies. Mm-hmm. One of them is high tech. One of them is ocean technology, and one of them is music.
Oh.
And he said, how are you going to do this? Now, bear in mind, this was quite a few years ago. I said, I'm going to cover the high-tech part by having a nuclear-powered system. I'm going to cover the ocean technology part by having it in a ship, and I'm going to cover the music part by making it a collier.
Okay.
So it's
which is a coal carrier.
A nuclear-powered coal carrier. And he said, how is that, what does that have to do with music? And I said, I'm going to name it the Cole Porter.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
I think you should pretend
That's a groaner.
I think you should pretend that you didn't hear about the nuclear thing either, because I am opposed to the use of nuclear power. Nevertheless.
Well, the net out of this, they could use this technology.
Yeah.
To do other things than carry
like
coal.
Transport milk or,
power ferries, container
ferries,
ships.
Absolutely. You could do ferries with it.
Anything. Any ship that's
a large ferry.
This is definitely a look in the future.
Yeah. Yep, it is. A large ferry, a ship-sized ferry. Yeah, you could have a thing like that docked for 2 hours and getting charged, and people get off, and then people get on with their cars. Okay, move on.
Let us move on.
Our next item is from The Messenger, still on December 3rd.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Army
yes.
engineers warn of brutal future for the Ohio River region.
Now, I want everybody.
This is an interesting and long
Yeah.
article, but it really goes into depth about how it's going to affect the Ohio River.
Yeah,
And it's not encouraging.
No, it's not. And there were questions that I had about this too. But anyway, I'll read the synopsis. According to a report from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, climate change will set off economic and environmental crisis like nothing ever seen before across the 13-state region of the Ohio River. That's the problem I've got. What are the 13 states? There aren't 13 states on the Ohio River.
I think they are states that border some of the states. I mean, New York's on the Ohio River through the.
Oh, they're talking about the total watershed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. There you go. There's a reason for all these things. It will cause more frequent flooding, drought, and power failures in Kentucky and Indiana and the rest of the Ohio River basin.
Whereas Indiana's not on the Ohio River. Well, I think
It
maybe
is.
it is.
It
Yeah, down
is.
the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The actual Ohio River is Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois,
Yep.
and then on the south, West Virginia,
Yep.
Kentucky.
Yep.
So,
No, so
but obviously, we've got other states that are contributing to this.
contributing well to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is interesting also because this is not the Sierra Club. This is the Army Corps of Engineers.
Well, this is what they're finding: increasingly potent storms.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've
More frequent
seen that.
and heavy droughts.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Rising temperature and wild swings in river flows.
We've seen that.
We've seen that. And out of all of that, huge economic losses.
Well, we've seen that too. I mean, this year has been, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how the year ends, but I think it's possible that we're going to have more than double the record economic losses from storms in this country.
Well, on the radio
And
again
weather.
today, California's all full of wildfires again.
Again, yeah. And we've had a huge percentage of our wheat crop was lost. I should do the research and find out what the percentage is. But I did see that it would be 50% at one time because, Montana has had this terrible drought going on. And then we've got Hurricanes Harvey and Irma and Maria, and we've had other events in addition to that, and it's just our weather is getting crazy.
For sure.
Okay, our next item is from the Los Angeles Times.
Senate tax measure helps President Trump pivot away from clean energy and back to fossil fuels.
I have no idea what they're going to do with this. This is so strange. Conservatives are backing this? This is bizarre. A conservative actually would back this? The tax bill passed by Republican senators elevates American fossil fuel production at the expense of renewable energy. There you go. Let's not pick winners and losers. Let's just pick fossil fuels as opposed to. Okay.
Well, that's what seems to be happening. I mean,
Yeah.
Trump has shot his mouth off.
Yep.
And now he's got to perform.
The measures they approved included proposals to open the Arctic to oil and gas development, weaken investment incentives for solar and wind production, and end a big tax credit for electric vehicles. By the way, did you happen to notice that the EPA was the result of an initiative by Richard Nixon?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. Anybody who's interested in the history of American conservatism and so forth, I've got conservative friends who talk about the good Roosevelt, Theodore. Anybody who is interested in that should take a look, because you can find it at Wikipedia. You take a look at the 1912 party platform of the Bull Moose Party, the Progressive Party that Roosevelt was running under. And what do you see? With the exception of the fact that it says things about women getting the vote, which of course we don't have today, that's no longer an issue, and child labor.
I think there's people looking to bring both of those back.
Well, there may be, but except for the fact that old things address those issues, and we don't see that in the news today. That platform of Theodore Roosevelt was almost, Bernie Sanders' platform was just an update of that.
I've read that.
And where are the conservatives in the United States? They're picking winners and losers. They're putting the most incompetent. No, they're putting the most incompetent people available into office, because we've got people like Scott Pruitt, who, if you look at what the law requires the head of the EPA to have in his background, Scott Pruitt is not qualified. Mm-hmm. And you see over and over again, the federal government has got people put into jobs for which they are not qualified. And why?
So they can eliminate the job.
No,
or eliminate the department.
Because they want the people to be politically correct from their point of view.
Okay.
We don't have bureaucrats in Washington anymore. We have political commissars.
Interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, well, anti-socialist people who are acting like, well, probably as close to real socialism as Joseph Stalin was. But they want to eliminate socialism. All right, let me get out of this mess that I've created for myself. Okay, we're up to Monday, December 4th, and we do have a picture here of a beautiful picture of a very pleasant little girl. Huh? This is from Green Biz.
This is a good long article.
Yeah.
A lot of meat in this one.
You got to be kidding me. And you were complaining about my joke.
Can McDonald's help solve climate change?
Yeah. For more than 4 years, McDonald's has been trying to find a way to produce what they call sustainable beef. Now, the fast food giant is setting out on a small but potentially significant project to measure and analyze the ability of cattle farming to sequester carbon in the soil using a style of grazing that has been called by researchers adaptive multi-paddock. And this cow is involved in a thing called carbon farming. And the whole idea of this is, if you treat the cow and you treat the land properly, the grasses, the flowers, the whatever that are out there, be interesting to know what that cow's cheese is going to taste like.
Basically, this is the way they raise their cattle in Ireland.
And other parts of the world.
And other places as well. I just have seen Ireland. It involves moving the cattle around, grazing the land for a short period of time.
Right.
Moving it to another fenced off area.
Right.
Moving them around, letting the land regenerate, letting the grass grow, going back.
Yep. And because they haven't cut the grass down to the ground, the grass can recover faster.
Recovers quickly.
Which means that it's got a much more extensive root system, which puts carbon underground.
And the cattle fertilize the ground.
And they're in better health too, because the thing that ultimately kills the dairy cow is very often bad teeth.
Is it really?
And the reason why the teeth go bad is because the cow is
eating dirt,
grazing down to the dirt and eating sand.
Yeah.
And it's very destructive. And I have read that there even is such a thing as a dentist for cattle.
Well, I can believe it.
Okay.
But it's interesting because they're using a technique that people have been using for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
But the difference is 100 cows to a dairy farm instead of 10,000.
Well,
that kind of thing.
We need smaller farms.
That's exactly what's going on.
Okay.
They may not be smaller farms, but they're breaking them up into smaller units.
Okay. Our next item is from Inside Climate News. This is another one.
This is another long article.
Yeah.
This is a pretty interesting article, particularly if you want to find out about microgrids, because they delve into what they are.
Yeah.
Microgrids keep these cities running when the power goes out.
Borrego Springs, California is a quaint town of about 3,400 people in the Anza Borrego Desert, about 90 miles east of San Diego. Summer temperatures are often above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and power losses can threaten lives. In the past, the town has suffered from frequent power outages, but today, Borrego Springs has its own microgrid.
Which is a good idea. I mean, I think it's the future of electricity.
I am writing right now, by the way, not this very minute, but this very day, an article for Green Energy Times, the upcoming issue on a microgrid in Warner, New Hampshire.
And where?
Warner.
Where's that?
It's almost smack dab in the middle of the state.
Okay.
And they're going to have a microgrid there of a type that I have never seen before. And it is stunning. It's just a matter of a different business plan.
Okay.
But we'll get to that.
Maybe you could give us a quick summary for the people that are watching what a microgrid actually is.
Okay, well, a microgrid, you know, if you think about it, a microgrid is a system which has one or more circuits that are powered by its own generating power and have backup power.
So it's kind of self-contained.
So if you have an off-grid house with solar panels and a battery,
that's a microgrid.
That's a microgrid. And
this
typically,
is a little bit bigger microgrid.
Yeah, this is a bigger microgrid. You can have a dozen houses, 1,000 houses, whatever it is, on a microgrid.
Which can be connected to the grid.
Yep.
Or disconnected at will.
That's right.
Depending upon what's going on.
So if the grid goes down,
you still got power.
These people in Borrego Springs have power when the grid goes down.
Yeah.
Because they've got their own microgrid.
And that could be done here.
Yeah, absolutely. And save money in the process.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to renewable economy. Renew economy. Here's the next article. We're in Australia.
I think we touched base on this before.
Yeah.
Australia breaks record again for rooftop solar installs in November.
Yeah, they keep doing that. In October this year, Australia managed to install 100 megawatts of rooftop solar, a major milestone, but still below the record set in June 2012, which was fueled by a rush to take advantage of a solar tariff before it was ended. Then, last month, the industry managed to install 120 megawatts, breaking the 2012 record without a tariff.
So this is happening by people acting on their own?
Yes, this is people acting on their own because it's so expensive to buy electricity in Australia now.
Uh-huh.
And one of the problems they have is that the central government is insisting on promoting coal. Does that sound...
Well, they got a lot of coal.
They have a lot of coal, but
they better get rid of it while they can.
Coal technology is obsolete.
Basically, yes, absolutely.
And now natural gas is running into obsolete.
Is it really?
Our use of natural gas for generating power is down for the year by 5% from last year. But one of the things the use of fossil fuels. Natural gas is down 10%. And, 10% is a big drop. That,
it is.
Huge. The Electric Power Monthly, which comes out from the Energy Information Administration, which is part of the US DOE, if you look at their most recent data on the Electric Power Monthly, Chapter 1.1, right at the bottom of the spreadsheet, and you compare each month to the same month in the previous year. So you're comparing across similar weather patterns, you'll find that every month in the last year, natural gas has produced less electricity than it did in the same month the previous year. Every single one.
What's the explanation for that?
People don't want to burn. They're being hit by renewable energy. Renewable energy's been growing, and natural gas is
getting cheaper.
And on top of that, natural gas installations are being put in, which means that the capacity factor of natural gas installations is collapsing because they're having more installations, but they're producing less power with them. That
almost doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and we are into a time when the payback out of that is going to come.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's going to happen, and then the Trump administration will bail them out. But in order to do that, they're going to have to get rid of coal and nuclear. So, Okay, we're up to Tuesday, December 5th.
Tuesday, yep. Solar to reach a tipping point in 2018.
I love these pictures.
Yeah, there's a picture. I got to get this picture up.
This is a good picture.
And save 80% in the developing world. Now, this is a picture of the developing world.
This is South Africa, yeah. Or at least that's what I read. I don't know. It's somewhere in Africa.
No, it's the article. The picture says South Africa.
I know that.
Oh, you put it there.
I put that there, but I put it there based on what I read that said South Africa, but it might not have been correct. You get these things on the web all the time, and if you do enough research, you find a lot of them are not really correct.
It doesn't look like Vermont.
No, it doesn't look like Vermont. I'm pretty sure that's Africa. It's just a question in my mind, what part. A report from UK development company Crown Agents concluded that 2018 will be the year solar hits its commercial tipping point, resulting in a dramatic drop-off in price and making the technology viable for 1 billion people who don't have power now.
That's with a B. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. It would open the door to save developing countries up to 80% by switching to solar from diesel and petrol.
And that's what they have been using, is diesel.
They've been using diesel, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Use solar, and it cuts the cost by 80%.
And
so these people who have got no money to begin with are going to be charged like 20 or 25 or 30% of the amount of money that they're currently paying for electricity, which means in turn that their entire life.
Well, we've talked about this several times in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Local people getting involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting these things in, billing them on their telephone for $30 a month or something like that.
We're in a different age.
And these are places that without distributed solar wouldn't have a chance of getting
and the young women,
power.
the Maasai women who are walking around with solar panels
on the back
donkeys
of a donkey.
that get installed on the tops of houses like these things with
it's a different world.
Thatched roof.
It's a different, but it's bringing power
to
these people who
never
have no
had it
chance
before.
of getting
now
it.
the kids can study and in the evening without having to have a kerosene lamp going or something like that. Okay.
There's a lot of benefits from it.
We're up to an article from Globes, which I don't know anything about, but
Globes.
Globes.
Israel's energy minister, this is a quote, "No coal or gasoline by 2030.
This is stunning. Israeli Minister of Natural Infrastructure, Energy and Water Resources, Dr. Yuval Steinitz, spoke today being what, last Monday, maybe, at the Israel Energy Business Convention at Kfar Maccabea Hotel in Ramat Gan. Man, I'll tell you something, I can't pronounce anything today. Presenting his long-term vision for the energy sector in the country. Quote, by 2030, Israel will no longer use any gasoline or coal, he said.
Well, they have neither, so it makes sense.
It makes sense for them to move, and now that the United States is putting its embassy in Jerusalem, who knows what's going to happen?
There may be some bad repercussions.
I don't even want to think about it. Natural Resources Defense Council is our next story.
Well, we got a little quick one here. By 2030, if this goes into effect, Israel will have no air pollution, so they say.
Yeah.
No polluting fuels, coal, fuel oil, diesel fuel in electricity production, transportation, and industry. This is pretty ambitious.
This is very ambitious, yeah. Okay, our next item is from the Natural Resources Defense Council, and it's an opinion piece.
3 reasons why renewable energy leaders are optimistic.
Optimistic. At Green Tech Media's U.S. Power and Renewables Summit, utility company executives, financiers, renewable energy developers, and regulators shared their research and different experiences of the rapidly evolving renewable energy industry. And I'll bet you've got
3 quick takeaways from this
I knew you were going to do that.
First one is extensive investment in renewable energy is already underway.
Yes.
Which, if you're watching this show, you know.
You know, yeah.
Okay. Second one is economic factors such as lower power purchase agreements. Mm-hmm. And we've discussed that too.
Absolutely.
And the third one is advances in energy storage, information technology, and electric vehicle technologies.
Yes.
These are happening as we speak.
They're all happening, and it makes everything less expensive for everybody except the people who are invested in fossil fuels and particularly in coal, oil, natural gas.
Probably when they made the investments, it looked like a good idea.
Yeah.
But the times they are changing.
They are. We're up to Wednesday, December 6th, and I've got a picture here of the Navajo Generating Station
here.
And an article from Clean Technica.
There's the Navajo Generating Station. Take a good look, because it's not going to be there much longer. Oh, that's the next article, isn't it?
Yes.
We got one about Hyundai
We have one about
from
Hyundai.
Clean Technica.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're skipping one.
Wait a minute.
Get,
Where is the one about Hyundai?
Hyundai.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right.
The picture goes with the next
I
article.
put the picture in the wrong place in my thing.
We'll bring you up so you can face the
yeah,
music.
So I can face the music. That's right. Here is an article from Clean Technica. Tom knows all about it.
Hyundai plans world's largest grid storage battery in Korea. Just after we just saw the world's largest in South Australia.
Yeah, and one of the things that's stunning about this is how fast it's going to happen. Tesla just built and installed the world's largest battery with 129 megawatt hours of grid storage in South Australia. Now Hyundai says it intends to build and install a battery that will be 50% larger than the one in South Australia, and they will build it on the southeast coast of South Korea. It is scheduled for completion in February of next year.
That's not very far in the future, is it?
No, it's not. And it's like 10 weeks from now, they're going to be saying that they've got this 200 megawatt hour battery or whatever it is in Korea. So Tesla's world-breaking installation is going to be world-breaking for record-breaking for only a few months.
Couple months, yeah.
And you know, I looked up the installations of batteries in the United States when I was doing research on this article, and it turns out that prior to 2016, and I didn't have information for that year, the greatest amount of battery installation in the entire United States was about 67 megawatt hours, which means
that's not a lot.
This battery that Tesla installed in Australia is about double the record for the American installations for the whole country.
Wow.
And
that puts it in perspective.
It does. And what's happening here is the price of electricity from batteries is dropping like a rock. And what you have to compare these prices to is not the price of natural gas or coal or wind power. It has to be compared with what it's replacing, and what it's replacing is
the peaking plants. Yeah, which are very expensive.
They're very expensive, and the peaking plants are natural gas, and we haven't had peaking plants being built in this country in any number for a couple of years now. And I think the reason is because the people who have been building them have been expecting exactly this kind of development, and so these batteries they're going to be ruling the world, really, in a sense, because and on top of everything else, what are they going to store? Well, they're going to be storing renewable energy. They would be built if we didn't have the peaking plants in the past, and we had this technology. They would have been built to support nuclear power.
Okay.
The
like
Northfield Station.
Northfield, yep.
That was built to support
Giant
Vermont
storage
Yankee.
battery.
Yeah. Vermont Yankee came online with 520 megawatts of power, and they came online at the same time with 1,040, exactly double.
Not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence
Because nuclear power, you hear about renewable power, sun isn't shining and you don't get solar, wind isn't blowing, you don't get wind. Nuclear power, you get it whether you want it or not.
In some places, they've actually paid people to take it.
They do that often, as a matter of fact. And, power prices go negative. They try to, they negotiate low rates for companies that will stay open at night, stuff like that. Okay.
By the way, just to bring things up, a peaking plant, it's basically a jet engine.
Yeah.
That you can turn on and off at will to generate electricity when you need it.
Yeah.
And when, of course, the cost is high.
And it only takes about, 5, 10, 15 minutes to get it going.
Quicker than that.
Yeah.
It's almost like flipping a switch.
But the battery is like flipping a switch.
Exactly.
It's faster. You get better power from the battery than you do from the peaking plant. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we should move on. And now we're up to the Navajo generating
Interesting
station.
thing about this one, falling battery prices, which we've discussed, are driving a huge increase in battery storage worldwide, which is just what we've been talking
Yes.
about. The principal cost benefit of battery storage is the savings realized by not building and operating so-called peak plants
Right.
that only operate a few hours a day.
Yeah. Or in some cases, only a few hours a year.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these natural gas peaking plants have capacity factors that are only half of what you get from solar.
But they can turn them on and off pretty
Yeah,
much
well,
at will. And
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
they served a purpose.
Yes,
but
they
that
did.
purpose is being eliminated as we speak.
Yep. We've got to get to this
Let's
next
get this
article,
picture
which
back.
is from White Mountain Independent. And that's not New Hampshire.
Navajo Generating Station retirement receives final approval.
The U.S. Department of Interior approved the replacement lease at the Navajo Generating Station. It officially sets a firm retirement date. Navajo Generating Station, the largest coal-fired power plant in the West, will retire in December of 2019. The Navajo Nation and the owners of NGS had agreed in June on terms to retire NGS in 2019. So,
Well, again,
you
as
know,
we've spoken, the utilities concluded it no longer makes economic sense to keep the plant running.
yeah.
That's a big plant.
That is a big plant.
That's
Well,
a big
let's
plant.
see. Is there a car you can see on that picture? There are cars in that picture. They're just so small that you
They're
can't
so
see
small.
them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can actually toward the middle of the picture, down near the bottom, you'll see three little rings there, just to the right of the center, that are parts of one of those cooling tower complexes. And right
Oh, yes.
above that and slightly to the left of it, very slightly to the left, is a car making a turn on a corner. And if you can't see it, it's because it's too small. That plant is
That's a
gigantic.
big plant. That's a big plant. There's nothing like that in New England.
Okay, we should move on
Well,
to
we
our
could-
last piece, which is from Imperial College London.
We got a picture here coming
We
up,
do.
too.
There it is.
Oh, it's up already.
It's up already.
How'd you get ahead of me?
Tom, just for anybody who wants to know, Tom controls which of several monitors' output is going to be put on the screen of the
Like
people at
magic,
home.
I'm going to bring you up.
Yeah, there you go. I control what picture is on one of the monitors.
Let's look at the picture again.
Pardon
A nice
me.
little railroad train there, and right next to it is a solar farm.
So what do you got for a title?
Imperial Research finds electric railways can be powered by subsidy-free solar. Well, Imperial gives you a clue. This is about England.
Yes.
But it could be about here.
It could be. The authors of a report from Imperial College London's Energy Futures Lab and the Climate Change Charity 10:10 found that electric railways could be powered by subsidy-free solar power. Solar panels connected directly to the substations that provide power to the rail system could bypass the electricity grid altogether.
Well, I'm looking at this picture here, and I say, this is a no-brainer, but what's missing in that picture is the framework, the structures that are already in place to bring power to the trains.
Yes.
These are overhead power wires,
Yes.
and the structures are there already.
You mean
they
that
can mount
doesn't
solar
work
panels
like
on top of them.
That isn't like an HO where one track has positive and the other track has negative?
Well, between New York and between Boston and Washington, there's an elaborate network of overhead cables.
Absolutely, and in fact, if you take Amtrak down to Washington, which I've done a bunch of times, Amtrak going through Vermont is running on diesel power that's generating electricity that is produced for the train. But once you get to some point, and I'm not sure exactly where it is, the diesel's shut off and the train
in New
runs.
Haven.
Is it in New Haven?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then from there on, this thing is operating entirely by overhead wires. And those trains, when they're on good road beds,
They go
are fast. I was riding through New Jersey and I turned to the conductor who was going by and I said, "How fast is this train going?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know." And I said, "I'll bet it's going over 100 miles an hour." And he said, "Why do you say that?" And I said, "Because those lunatics on that superhighway next to us are probably doing 75 or 80, and we're passing them like they're standing still." Okay.
It's an interesting takeaway from the article.
Yep.
Solar arrays and integrated energy storage devices could supply around 10%, only 10%, of the energy needed to power trains on a UK's DC electrified routes each year at lower cost than electricity supplied via the grid today.
Why
You know,
not do
in
it?
England, everything's electric.
Yeah.
All their trains are electric.
Yeah.
I mean, here,
Well,
they're mostly diesel.
where is it? Netherlands? In the Netherlands, all of the trains are powered by wind power. We have to go, Tom. Let's
I guess it's
put us
about that
both
time,
up.
isn't it?
It is about that time. So what we're going to do is say, see you next time.